Well, welcome to another episode of Resourceful Women. I'm very happy today to have Jennifer Burge as my guest, and I will let Jennifer introduce herself and the work that she does in mining because we've had a little pre chat and we've discovered we have a lot in common with both of us being communication people. And take it away, Jennifer. Thanks for being here.
I very much appreciate the invitation. It was a delightful surprise to meet you in Yellowknife recently,
Yeah.
and it's great to see you again. So, my company is Worldwise Consulting. This is a company that I started almost 7 years ago after 25 plus years in international business.
Okay.
I live in Mexico City. That's country number 8. I've worked in 20, visited 50 plus, whatever, and the number is growing. So, the common thread through all this was working on projects, and mostly they were IT projects. But the similar theme or the consistent thread is that you have to understand how people are thinking in order to accomplish any goal it is that you want to accomplish.
Anything,
Yeah.
anything, anywhere, and I love that that's something you can build a business on.
Everyone told me not to.
And just bringing people together to do something, I think, is very satisfying work. And being able to do it across cultures, I think, is another element of skill that not everyone has. So, as you're looking and working with your clients, specifically in the resource industry and making these connections, how do you start out?
I ask a lot of questions.
Mhm.
I think that's where anything has to start, right? I mean, I had to learn about Canada recently more than, I have probably thought about Canadian landscape in my entire life, realized I really, really need a very good map. My previous map had Australia in the center of the map, so very different perspective on the world.
Yeah.
Um, I ask a lot of questions, and I really just want to understand where people are at, what are they trying to accomplish, and how are we going to get there? But it's not up to me to determine any of those things.
Mhm.
So I have to listen.
I like that. I have listening as one of the core aspects of my practice as well, because I think if we go in with curiosity, we were talking about that earlier, a little curiosity goes a long way, and to not have our minds made up
Right.
as we start to go into things, which isn't to say that you're going in naive.
Right. No.
You can do all the research in the world, but the ability to stay curious, I think, is something that will help you get where you want to go and help your clients get where they need to go. So if you have any, particular stories of, learning something that kind of like blew your mind, I think that's a really interesting thing where you go in neutral, you're like, wow, I did not expect it to go like this.
Oh my goodness.
Is that every day for you?
Well, I've written 2 books. I mean, I have fumbled the ball literally all over the world. So, people are complex, and, you can never judge a book by its cover, because we have many of us, especially within the mining industry, as we also were talking about, we move around and we move around and we move around, and we are complex creatures and a culmination of everywhere that we've been and the people with whom we've interacted.
I love that.
Hopefully we
Yeah,
are.
I see that in my children, having had them in having had them in different countries and seeing different things, they really
Think
are.
differently.
Yeah, they do see the world from that perspective, and they've taken a lot of the good parts of culture with them, and it hasn't always been sunshine and roses,
Oh,
'cause that
no.
would be ridiculous.
Mm.
But I think they're pretty strong, resilient, open-minded people. And I think that's one of the things that's wonderful about working between cultures is
I was gonna say, how can we grow more of those people? Where do we find that? Where do we put the, plant them? Because
education. Yeah,
yes.
education is a priority, and getting to see something different because your own awareness of culture doesn't develop until you step out of it, I think.
Oh my goodness. I've been told, and I've read, and I completely agree with the fact that you cannot see your own culture with absolute clarity until you leave it.
Mhm.
And I mean, that's true every time I walk into a new airport in a new country and try to figure out. I mean, in the olden days, right? I used to come prepared with the address of the hotel already written in the whatever local language,
Mm.
because we didn't have Google,
Right.
right?
And you'd
So
have to show it to the
taxi driver.
yeah.
It wasn't Uber. It was, where everything is translated for you magically.
Yeah.
So
And then you would have to decide which taxi is okay to get in. If the driver wants me in their cab too much,
Uh-huh.
maybe that's not the cab to go in.
And what if you're landing in, I don't remember, I want to say it was Switzerland, but then how far is the airport, the hotel from the airport?
Mhm.
And then sometimes you're driving a little bit too long. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
and I can't even ask you, are we almost there?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
just have to think it.
So it's so much easier with Google. Like,
Yes.
and when we were doing our travel, it was very similar. Like we needed things prearranged. We had security concerns that we needed to manage ahead of time, and know what to do. And we had these little age appropriate courses for our kids, like don't go with other people. Just the normal
Don't get in
things.
the white van.
Don't no, unless it's our driver
Right.
and we're with you.
Right.
Where you're going to school. So yeah, ironically, they did go to school in a white van.
I wondered
But
why
we
you had
knew
that
the
look on your
driver.
face. Yeah.
It was so funny. Not the white van. Yes, the white van for us was very safe. So yeah, it's so neat to move between cultures metaphorically, but also there's how do we physically move through cultures, right? Like that aspect of it, I think, is something that's really unique in mining because we pull experts from all over the world.
Right.
We bring them together on a
And you
project.
don't let us go.
And hopefully that's a good repeat client.
Yes.
And then, you have to take that core of people and say, okay, now what are you going to do in this area? And we were talking earlier and we said it's almost like you have to reinvent the wheel for every site.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It would be wonderful if there were universal norms, so to speak, but that doesn't exist anywhere.
Yeah.
And the more I learn about the complexity of British Columbia, for example, the more I know that, I used to work for a large consulting firm. I will not mention which one, but I used to work for them and they believed in templates.
Mm.
Templates are king, and that
Yeah.
we can cookie cutter this all the way across because that makes us efficient. And then we're in, we're out, we get the job done.
This works.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah. And you will do it.
This is our process.
Yes. And don't go thinking. Just don't go thinking. So, but
Yeah.
now if you try to to use an approach like that with these complex situations where you're talking about global investment, multicultural teams, geographically dispersed teams,
Mhm.
communities, I mean,
Yeah.
there is no template.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Yeah. There are starting places though.
Absolutely.
And I like that you identify questions and curiosity and listening as the starting places. When you come into a process, how far advanced are your clients typically in the community aspect of it? Are you in on the earliest stage? Are you in what you would consider a little late?
To be honest, the first clients that I've had, or that I had, yeah, my first clients were, I would always show up when there was a problem.
Yes.
And when there was that's the issue that I think is worth uh, blaring into the microphone. That it's when you have a delay, when you have the lack of development and communication and understanding at the beginning, at the upstream of any project, you won't even be aware. It's invisible until downstream. When there's delays, there's breakdowns, there's complete project failure.
Mhm.
And all of these things likely were there the whole time, but it's the accumulation of mistrust, the accumulation of gaps of knowledge that
Expectations.
right,
Yeah.
misalignment of expectations, 1000%.
Mhm.
But it'll look like it's going along just fine
We're on
until
schedule.
it doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of times I show up when there's an issue to be resolved. And I fully believe that the expression of prevention is much cheaper than a cure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the companies that are wise to that have probably lived through and experienced the the malcontent of malcontent, misalignment, difference in expectations, all of these different things. One of the things that I find most interesting is there's usually a thread of common interest. And there's usually been some point where it broke down. And like you were mentioning, trust. My favorite book on trust is The Thin Book of Trust, because
Okay.
it's just so, it just breaks it down so simply and it puts it into what I consider digestible bite-sized pieces. And how do you, when you get into that conflict situation, how do you resolve the lack of trust or the act of mistrust?
That is the $1,000,000 question, because sometimes it can't.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's in one party's interest for it not to be resolved,
Mhm.
right? I've had that situation too, which is super unfortunate.
But good to recognize.
Yeah, I mean, there
Like
was.
we wouldn't call that a good outcome, but if that is the ultimate outcome, get there fast.
Oh, I couldn't agree with
Right?
you more. I couldn't agree with you more. And sometimes, one party or the other or multiple parties. I mean, we're talking about, as we just mentioned, super complex situations. So sometimes there is not a resolution. And that's just the way it's going to be. You're going to have to
Mhm.
take your project somewhere else,
Mhm.
right? Or you're going to have to change out staff or find the people, the leaders who have a bit more flexibility of mindset to say, well, there's another way we could do this.
Mhm.
And maybe we need to try that because the way we've been doing it isn't working anymore.
Clearly. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't understand why that's so
Yeah.
confusing.
Well, I think, there's a certain person or a certain disposition that would be drawn to the kind of communication where it's like, I see what could happen here. I see what could happen there. I've seen in my career over and over again what happens when things aren't planned for. Like I have kind of a cheeky start to why I, opened a business, and it was that I saw a void in communication planning.
Mhm.
So you would expect in a company that all of these technical people with all of these great skills are so focused on their area that communication is often overlooked. And I was like, okay, well, that's where I can do something. Let's make a plan. How is that going to work? So whether it's talking about like internally, how are we going to do as we go through the stages of a project? How are we going to transition from this to this to this? What's our communication plan going to be? And
Well, people plan. There's
right,
plans.
that was the
Plan.
funniest thing is I was like, so when this project went wrong, what do you attribute it to? It was, oh, it was a breakdown in communication. And I've heard that so many times. And I was
Millions of
like,
times.
what part of your plan went wrong? Crickets.
Right.
Plan. I was like, so, in your communication plan, your communication strategy on how, you would work with each other, how you would flow, how you
Sequence
flow
of events.
information in and out of, they're like, oh, right. But it seems to be that's a lesson that needs to be learned on repeat.
Yes.
So the companies I think that are doing great work are ones who already have that built in. They already have that mindset that we need to focus on how we're going to communicate. So in Canada, it's typically, we call it engagement and early and all these different things. But for me, it's the fundamental of communication.
Mhm.
Who do you need? What is your project going to do? What stage are you at? And typically, the first contact between a potential project and a community isn't going to be the communications person.
No.
It's going to be the geologist.
Yeah.
So, it's almost like I always think of Star Trek. It's like, that first explorer maybe needs to have a comms with them
Yeah. That's
or a strategy or a chat ahead of time or a here's
Or
what we're about or here's who you can be in touch with
an awareness.
and awareness.
Awareness would be great
Yeah,
to be started. I mean,
yeah.
and I think there are geologists who are aware, of course, right?
But that would be a personal thing,
Mm.
right? It's not programmed.
No, it's not.
And that's my thing. It's like I'm like, why aren't we programming this in as easily as we program in like, oh, we need drill results by this date. Okay, well, we need a comms plan by this date. We need a comms strategy by this date. Here's our sequence. We need to know who we're talking with first before we do certain things. And that's the prevention part of it that I think.
I think I agree with you. Obviously, we agree, or
Yeah.
probably would not be sitting here at this moment having this
Yeah.
conversation.
It's kind of
But
an agree fest.
yeah, well, I don't want to say echo chamber, but
Yeah.
I think what many companies, and I won't say most, but many companies get wrong is that culture is not a soft skill. It's an operational risk.
You're you're cracking me up because I've actually written pieces on let's stop calling it soft skills.
Oh,
It's like it's human skills that get you like hard and fast results.
and what you just said is so appropriate because it's not, companies or whatever stakeholder we're talking about looks at culture as a perhaps a risk. If they're anywhere near intelligent, they're looking at it as a risk.
Mhm.
But where they should be looking at it is how you described building the plan to say, let's build this internal capability
Mhm.
of having these conversations upfront so
Yeah.
that when we have our technical dashboard and all of our data is there and all of these problems, which will never show up,
Yeah.
we will be aware of them
Yeah.
if we have people who understand how it's done.
Yeah. And we'll be at a point where when we say something, somebody might believe us because they've met us, they know us, they believe, and they have that little bit of trust that they can lean on and lead into and say, well, that's something I find as well is our subject matter experts, like let's take tailings as an example.
Mhm.
So our tailings experts are the people in the world who know the most about that.
Right.
And yet, if they don't have that relationship, they don't have access to the people who know the most about it,
Correct. Yes.
or they won't believe them.
Right.
Or they'll think that because that's a company person, we can't trust company people. And so maybe that person is like trying to snow us, trying to mislead us, doesn't think we, all these different things. So the relationship aspect of it has to precede any kind of fruitful, productive, working
Yes.
together kind of conversation. And it's fascinating to me that that continues to happen.
It's and it costs lives, it costs millions, it costs natural disasters.
Mhm.
And
It costs projects as well.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
goes if we stepping back from
Yeah.
world destruction.
Yeah.
Yes, it does cost projects. And ticking a box and following a process doesn't give you credibility.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that you've actually done the work.
Yeah, because you've met the regulatory requirement, it doesn't mean that you've had the conversations you need to have.
Correct.
Sometimes you're close. Like some regulations are close. I mean, in Canada, we have the free, prior, and informed consent aspect of it, but even
Right.
that is still evolving, and that's still developing. And there's, you know, every community you deal with will have a different capacity. They'll have a different interest. They'll have a different viewpoint. And the projects that I see that work really well are a truly satisfying and delightful blend of the company doing the work, doing communication work, doing the relationship work, and the community wanting it as well. And I
Right.
think that's something that's amazing. So to put it back to you, what are some successes that you're particularly happy with?
Well, I'm going to say the word unfortunately. Often what hits the news is the ones that are the ones that don't make headlines for the right reason.
Mhm.
So I've been, as we met in Yellowknife, I've
Yeah.
been spending some time understanding the North lately, which is fascinating and incredible and incredibly cold in January.
You are
But
very brave.
but it was I did get to see the aurora borealis, which was magic and just incredible. So perk of the job. But
That's the
I
12 o'clock horn.
okay, I was just thinking,
Sounds like a ship.
I thought that I was at it was recess time or something. I wasn't sure what was happening. But when I was thinking about the North, and we were talking about positive, trying to think where I was headed with that positive success story. Oh, there's a podcast that Agnico Eagle did
Yeah.
called, is it Arctic Edge? I believe is the name of it.
Mhm.
And it involves community members and talking with the community members to what is their story? What is their experience of, Agnico coming into the community? How did they build together? How did they build with a blend of traditional culture
Mhm.
as well as corporate culture? How did they make that work? And that was a really positive example from what I have seen.
Yeah.
Now, I don't live there, so I'm not 100% sure it's working out as planned, but it certainly sounds like it is.
But the story is intriguing and
Well, it's the first time I've seen that kind of interaction
okay.
publicized that way,
Okay.
and within a community and a company doing it together.
Mhm. The I think what you're talking about is a trend the very successful heading toward co-planning.
Yeah.
So rather than just sharing the plan that was made in isolation with the people and essentially selling the community on the plan that they already have,
Right.
is to engage in a way that the plan will work for parties along the way because it's been co-developed.
Right.
So in the Canadian resource landscape, I think that's something that's identifiable
Mhm.
as, co-planning
Right.
as the next evolution of community engagement.
Well, I think
Is
it's beautiful to see, and I'm very inspired by it.
Yeah,
I can say I haven't seen it happening quite as much in Mexico where I currently live.
yeah.
So, perhaps that's how I ended. I shouldn't say ended up here because I'm quite enjoy working in Canada, but maybe
That's a
that's
path.
the attraction,
Yeah.
right? Because I have been in many countries where I'm not seeing it done well.
Mhm.
So I think
And that's
Canada is
and that's what's really interesting is when we talk in the industry, there are, what we have in common the world over is looking at projects, and they're done differently in so many places. And to
right.
hear your take on how it's happening in Canada is a great piece of news for us, I think.
I didn't come up to flatter only,
But if there
but if it works,
if there is something good going on, let's do more of it,
yeah,
you know, and identify what doesn't work. And I think that, when we're identifying what doesn't work, it's often painful.
right.
I don't think it needs to be that painful.
It has
Um,
been very painful in the past.
yeah.
And that could be also the evolution of the industry,
Mhm.
right? I've
Yeah.
spent many years in Australia, several years in Mexico, and now I would say I'm probably been working within the Canadian landscape for just barely 2 years,
Mhm.
year and a half. And I like what I see.
That's good.
I'm very positive about it. And
Yeah.
I tend to shift and groove where I'm learning something.
Mhm.
And then, especially if it's positive, then why wouldn't you be attracted?
Yeah.
Because as I said before, some of these parties are not interested in resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're interested in capital.
And how do you find that out? Right? Do you want to find that out in the initial stages? Or do you want to find it out when you're $150 million in
Right.
and you've already committed a few goals? So that aspect of it is like really get down to what the interests are. Are
Yes.
you interested
Yeah.
in having any kind of partnership? If you're fully not interested in a partnership, it's been nice to meet you.
Yes. Yes. Thanks very much.
Yeah. You know,
But please let's not put on a show.
yeah, let's not, dance a dance that we don't want to dance. Let's not go down a road we don't want to go down.
No.
And from the community part of it too, it's important as well that the community is sorted out
Yeah.
on it. If you're in an area that has resources, what do you as a community want?
Want.
What do you really want?
Right.
If you really want jobs, then you're going to need to have programs in place that allow people to develop the jobs.
Right.
If you want sustainable development and you want things to last beyond the life of the project, how do you talk about that? How do
Right.
you look forward to that? How do you do all of these different things? And it's a big ask
It absolutely
to
is.
say, by next week, if you could tell us your plan for the next 50 years, that would be so
That'd be
great.
great. Awesome.
If we can work together and make that happen with you, that would be awesome. And it's like, um,
And
the
I
next 50 years, right? Like right now.
well, and time is something that cultures manage completely differently.
Mhm.
I mean, some manage
Yeah.
to a schedule. Some countries and cultures manage to a schedule, very planned out, very methodical. Some cultures don't go anywhere near
Yeah.
a plan and a timeline. And so just that conversation by itself isn't simple.
You're reminding me of all the times when yes means no chance.
I had a maintenance, a repairman come to my home in Mexico City, and he started working on something, and then he had to leave. Still unclear as to why he had to leave, but then he was supposed to come back
Didn't
the
want
next
to anymore.
day. Yeah, the next day. I said, "Well, Pedro, are you coming back today?" He was supposed to come back the following day, and he said, "Yes, but no."
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know what to do with that, Pedro.
Yeah, I really
Is
don't.
it a yes, yes, or is it a no, yes? Is
I
it
think
like
if
you
the
wish?
no is in there at all, then it's a no.
I've had
But we're softening the no.
I've had yeses that are actually no's with no softening.
Yes.
And it's just like, oh, okay. How do you know the difference? And it takes a minute.
It does. And
Yeah.
especially if you're using electronic communication,
Yes.
even using Zoom or something like that and not being sitting across the person face to face.
Yeah.
The-
You're not
if it-
getting the vibe.
No, I mean, that's it, right? Like, if you,
Yeah.
just walking in a room, sometimes you feel the energy of that room. It's like, I'd like to leave this room,
Yeah.
or this is a great room.
Yeah. I made an error when I came to the door and I will be leaving immediately. Bye.
Right.
Yeah.
So sorry.
There's some places you walk in and you're like, this is really cool.
Yes.
And you get a really good vibe. And then as you get to understand it, it's like, okay, well, there's friendliness, but they're good. They have no need for the company. They have no need for
Right.
me. They
Right.
have no need
that's
for
fine.
anything.
It's fine.
And it's good to know.
Yes. Yes. It's
good to
good to know. It's clarity is wonderful.
Mhm.
And I wish that we could all be a little better at that. And I'm now a blend of all of these places that I've lived and worked. And, when I first arrived in Canada this time around, I forgot that I could speak English. I seriously thought I was trying to formulate in my head about, okay, how do I say this in Spanish? Then I went, wait a minute, where am I? Yeah,
Place check.
right. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure that I'm the most clear individual at times, is my point. It could come out a little quicker.
It's a delightful muddle sometimes. I remember when I was learning Spanish, I had, and I might have even said this in another podcast, but I would have what I called fish mouth moments where I could neither say the thing in Spanish
Right. Yes.
nor in English. And I would just be like, the, it was like, I am without words, I am sin palabras. And I couldn't even have that.
No, I totally know.
I was just like,
There is a land in between. There's this limbo spot in between. Yes. There is no language.
language at all.
And it doesn't matter if I've got 5 in the back of my brain, but there's a time when there is none.
And the delightful thing for me too is what I was like, I mean, I didn't think I retained a lot of my high school French, being a Canadian learning another language. But as soon as I was searching for the not English word, I was like, hello, French word. You're not the one either.
It happened to me in a German grocery store. Spanish came out when I was trying to, I didn't speak Spanish, or sorry, I didn't speak German. And the closest thing was Spanish. And the poor man just looked at me like, I wish I could help you. But no.
This is just even funnier, the parallels in our stories. I was living in Thessaloniki and I needed something from the hardware store. And I went in and I was like, I definitely don't have the Greek to describe this. And the guy in the shop was
Played
like,
charades.
no English. I'm completely, I have no shame. I'm trying to paint a picture with my hands and facial expressions and
Try to
just
say
like whatever it takes.
German.
Yeah. Money machine.
I was like,
Yeah.
house.
Yeah, house.
Card.
This guy, he was like, oh, my English. I was like, no Greek. I'm like, Espanol. He's like, see?
Yes. Isn't that the
So
best?
he actually,
Yes.
the guy in the Greek hardware shop spoke Spanish, and I was like, oh, this works for me.
Just made my day, sir. Gracias.
Yeah. Necesito un tornillo. And he's like, oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, no
it's okay."
problem.
Yeah. And it was just, I laughed so hard. I'm like, I cannot wait to tell the kids this story.
Have you read the article that talks about when you learn a second language or another language other than your native, that it actually builds new connections
Yes.
in your brain, right?
Yes.
And so the same is true living within different cultures. It's proven that it makes you think absolutely differently. It doesn't. You don't connect the dots the
I
way
do.
other people do.
I do think like the act of moving between cultures, working between cultures, like the neuroscience of it is there's neuroplasticity. So we're making new connections. We're literally seeing things in new ways. We're storing things in new ways. And, like just as a little signal of it was the first time I had a thought in Spanish.
See,
And I was like, well, that was kind of fun.
it's
like,
it's
okay.
not just the voices in my head.
I didn't-
I didn't speak Spanish.
I didn't think it and translate it. I just thought it. And I was like, well, that's kind of a kick. Like that was a
Yes.
new level for me. And
It's kind of a freak out.
it was very fun.
Yes.
And, very empathetic with the kids and, anyone who speaks with an accent. I just love it because it's such an intercultural flag. Like it just says so much about, somebody's willingness to learn, someone's
Right.
willingness
Effort.
to take in new information
Mhm.
and all the effort and everything like that. And when we were talking before, you were saying how many languages you hear when you come to Canada.
Right. In Vancouver, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
I would
amazing.
and do a lot of work with an Indigenous development corporation as well. And I even find like the three words that I know in the language are just really basic. But when I move outside of that, I find myself almost defaulting to those through the day words. And I was like, okay, English. And it's just, the work that we do, we try and use as much of the Indigenous language as possible as as a way to just be in the place,
Yeah, of course.
to be working and honor the people who work there who have that as their first language.
Right.
And that language loss
Yes.
is tragic. I mean, there's so much culture embedded in the language and all of those different things. And companies that are, I think, wise to that
Mm.
are ones who are going to naturally, and I won't say effortlessly because it's an enormous effort, like to move between the cultures, but to realize that intercultural aspect of the work. So the companies that are putting effort in to looking at how are we relating, how are we joining
Mhm.
this effort in this place. And I think, the language pieces are really important to it. I was just talking with a guy who's working in Nunavut, and everything they did gets translated into
Yeah,
the three official languages.
that's the way it should be.
Yeah, and I was just amazed by it. So
So this is in common, is what you're saying.
it's kind of I would say that it's not as common as it could be,
Okay.
but only in places where the people in the community have have had enough interaction and commerce and just getting in and out of being in their own culture, especially with places that are really remote,
Mhm.
if they already speak the other language.
Okay.
Um, so it's really fascinating to me, and I think we're in a moment historically, I think, and I would never expect to be in the moment that we're in it as Canadians, as people in the world,
Right.
dealing with the global forces that we're dealing with
Right.
and
I think it was
looking at
referred
all
to
of
as a
these things.
rupture this morning.
Yes. Yeah. Our PM nailed it.
Mhm.
Like to go through a time like this is awful, but I think it's also an opportunity to do better.
100%.
And I think that we already know how we're going to do better. And when we are able to look at culture as something that strengthens us, when we're able to look at diversity as something that makes us better, helps us see more, do more, and
Right.
and do these things together. So that's the part of your work that I find so fascinating, is you do that on the regular.
Well, I get a charge out of bringing people together on the same ride, the same direction, and getting to the destination.
Mhm.
And I think, as we've mentioned before, it's not terrifically difficult to listen and
Yeah.
inquire and genuinely want to understand someone else's perspective on any particular issue.
Mhm.
And, why we think we can dictate those things to someone who has come from a vastly different background, whether
Mhm.
that be whatever, whatever type, whatever geography you come from, or a particular culture.
Mhm.
I find it's like we battle ourselves, right? We want to, I don't want to say we want to run the world because that's not what I mean, but it's like we are just too intent on filling the gaps. The quiet makes us nervous, so we interpret. We put our own
Mm.
interpretation on top of, and that's based on our own cultural values and our own cultural awareness. And if you haven't been anywhere else other than where you grew up, well, that's going to cause some issues.
Yep. And for the people on the community side who haven't been anywhere else,
Mm.
it's not necessarily pleasant to be suddenly having to entertain all these different cultures, all
No.
these different influences, all of these different questions. And growth has discomfort to it.
Right.
And I think that generally we're not okay with being uncomfortable.
No.
And I think that's something really important when we're going between cultures. Expect to be uncomfortable, and that's okay.
It's funny that you said that because when I do this in many different ways, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes it's consulting and it's helping companies that want to expand across borders. Sometimes it's working with international multicultural teams who are having some challenges communicating. And I've actually had international teams who just want to do it better, and there wasn't actually a
Yay!
problem. So that was those have been let's
That's
say the positive
prevention at
side.
its best.
Yes, yes.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I don't
Like
think
that it's a wrong thing.
no, for me it's pretty normal. I
Yeah.
mean, I thought
Thinking through discomfort.
right. I thought I understood. I started working in Sonora, Mexico. My Mexico adventure began in Hermosillo, Sonora, and it was just across the border from Arizona. Right.
Okay.
So did some work with the governments. Doesn't to get into that entire picture doesn't really matter, but I spent a lot of time in Hermosillo, a couple of years, and I started to think I understood Mexico. And then
Mm.
I went to Mexico City.
And you discovered you understood.
Nada, nada, darn thing. So yeah, it was a massive learning curve, and it was hugely uncomfortable to go to a city of 22 million people with traffic that would make anyone go
Pull their hair
white
out.
in the face and age you by 20 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
You can only
absolutely
inhale sharply so many times in a row, passing out.
right. But I think what I can say on the opposite side of that, 4 years into it, is it's given me so much
Mhm.
being in that discomfort, being just trying to understand consistently what is going on has
Yeah.
taught me a great deal.
Yeah.
But you have to be the minority. You have to be the one who's willing to say, right, I'm
Yep.
not in charge. I'm here to learn.
Mhm.
What are you talking about? Or how are
Yeah.
we doing this? And
I
how can
want
we
to
get there?
understand this aspect,
Mm.
you know, and I think the trust in the relationship needs to be there because I don't think you'll get people walking with you in that learning journey. Not to be too corny about it, but you won't have people willing to walk with you unless you already have that relationship.
Correct.
Like they'll be like, eh, she can learn it or not learn it. It doesn't matter to me.
Right.
But for someone to invest in your understanding
Mhm.
of their community is a very meaningful thing.
I have been incredibly fortunate for the people along the way who have shown me and helped me connect and shown me where the resources are to learn. I mean, and thankfully we can do so much of this ourselves now, right? When I went to Germany
Yeah.
in 2001, it was right after a stint in Calgary,
Oh.
my first international adventure.
Calgary.
So went from Calgary.
Okay, that's
I know, I know. I shouldn't have thrown that in there because that was gonna cause some pause for a sec, but
It did for me. Okay,
so I
but
went.
that's fair.
But when so it was 2000, and I'm gonna totally age myself, but it was 2001, and it was August 2001, and I got home just before September 11th, 2001,
Oh.
and then on the heels of that, I went to Germany, and in terms of discomfort
Mhm.
on the world stage and what was happening. I mean, that was certainly an interesting time for everybody.
Mhm.
But and when I landed, I mean, we didn't have Google, we didn't have smartphones. We
Yeah.
might have had no, I had a Nokia, I had a flip phone. So I had that. But the only channel I could watch in Germany for a year was CNN because
Oh, dear.
it was in English.
That's hard
Everything
on a
else
brain.
was dubbed in German.
Okay.
Yeah, was not most fun.
Ooh.
Yeah, I just turned off the TV eventually, but
Yeah.
yeah, there was no way, there weren't so many ways for us to understand or to access information about culture.
Mhm.
You had to go out and watch, you had to go out and learn, you had to sit in a
Be in
cafe,
it. Yeah.
you had to work, and a lot of these things came through work. And that was not easy in the
Mhm.
beginning, especially I mean, I have many German friends today from that time period.
Yeah.
Let's say they would probably admit they're not the most flexible lot, right? So
Yeah.
they weren't going to change.
Yeah.
It was going to be me.
Yeah.
So
And as the visiting culture.
Mhm.
I think
That's
that's
appropriate.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's the way that it needs to be.
Yes.
And I think, for the companies who can embrace that aspect of it,
Mhm.
like it's our job to participate in making this work,
Right.
right?
Right.
We're not here to show you how to do it. We're not here to, and it's just for me, it's a mindset or a disposition that isn't showing up and saying, well, we have the answers,
Oh, 1,000%.
right?
I mean,
And we have questions. Like I think that's fair.
I think it's what I've found so refreshing about the North and just this short time that I've started to learn, which is maybe about the past year, the North of
Mhm.
Canada. Um, it's I don't know if I can say this, but there seems to be a no bullshit policy. I don't
For
know if
sure.
I'm allowed to say that, but it was the
Absolutely.
same feeling that I had in Alaska.
Yep.
Right. In these climates where people need to collaborate,
Yes.
we don't have time to mess around.
Yep. That's
So let's
exactly
be
what I was
clear.
going to say. It's like, why bother flopping about?
No,
Just get right
Pedro's
to
not
it.
here to say yes, but no. We don't have to deal with that
Just-
equation
I
today.
don't want to do that. Yeah.
No, we need to be very clear,
Yeah.
right? Because it can mean life or death.
We don't want that. Yeah. We want this, we don't want that. And there is I've thought about it as well. There's a clarity
Right.
that comes with the cold.
Right. Well, I was thinking, so from your time in Latin America,
Yep.
you know that there's often, it's very indirect cultures,
Yep.
indirect communicators.
Yeah.
So you don't
And you need
always know what the picture
and you need to
is.
kind of think sideways because it's
Yes,
polite.
correct.
And so for me, coming from something that's more direct, I'm like, well, if you don't want to come mañana,
Right.
please don't tell me that you do.
Right. Because if
And
I sit here all day,
I will sit here all day thinking that when you said mañana, you meant mañana and you just meant like maybe.
5 years.
And I was like, okay, so learning those things and understanding that you come from a culture that is more direct, that
Right.
is more time bound, that is
Right.
more this. It's like, I didn't even know there was variation
Oh,
in that, and then all the learning has just been to me like the flavor in my
right.
whole life has been learning.
I
That's where the good stuff happens.
I completely agree. And the surprises are, sometimes unpleasant, but most often they are super interesting.
Yeah.
And the way I've tried to explain this to people over time, I've said it's your superpower to understand culture. It's your invisible superpower
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
once you have that perspective, once your mind is more open to
Mhm.
many different ways of doing things,
Yes.
it does make you more effective. It does make you more impactful.
It gives you a range of options that no one else can come up with. And for companies who embrace it, I think it gives companies a range of options that and a creativity that is untappable
I
without
completely agree.
without understanding culture.
I
So,
completely agree, and I've said it several times before that every culture has a secret code,
mhm.
a hidden code book, and even the people who live within that culture often don't explicitly know
No, but they
because they don't
intuit it.
talk about. Yeah, of course, but that's
Yeah.
the thing; it's innate.
Yeah.
So, but it's not written anywhere.
Yep.
So you never know if you're doing the right thing until you do the wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
And to misstep is
can be mistrust forever.
yeah, and it can go badly and it can go beautifully. And if you get a little bit of grace extended to you as being an outsider,
Right.
someone might be kind enough to take you aside and say,
Hey,
we, we don't talk first.
right.
We talk last. Or we don't say this, or we don't say that, or we do say this, or when you
That
say
chair's not
this,
for you.
yeah, right? Or, when you do this, here's the effect that it has on people.
Right.
And that takes like a
Guts.
naked level of honesty
Mhm.
that is difficult to achieve. And I think that brings it back around to the trust, where it always swirls back to the trust.
Yeah,
Culture and trust, you can't pull them apart, I don't think.
no, I think you're right. They are interrelated 100%. And I try to explain that's why, having these conversations and building relationships, it's not in an engagement. It's not, I mean, a
Yeah.
consultation is an engagement. A relationship shape relationship
Yep.
is a system, right? It
Yep.
is a series of events. And if you go along in that system and you have I mean, the more trust capital you build,
Yep.
when you make that error, you sit in the wrong seat, you invite the wrong person, you speak before you're supposed to.
Yeah.
Those things are much more easily forgiven if
Yeah.
you've done the work up leading up to it.
Because you have a context, because you have a relationship. I love that you're pointing out the difference between relationship and an interaction. It's so
It's not a one-off.
it's so pivotal, especially with First Nations here, Indigenous businesses here, Indigenous people here, understanding too that we are at the summation of all of the interactions that we've had so far.
Yeah,
And so doing something new is adding to it, but realizing that it's already happening.
right.
Like we're already in some kind of relationship. And for it to develop takes attention, intentionality,
Right.
and a genuine curiosity. So it's been it's been amazing talking with you. Or I said to you, I could talk for an entire afternoon because there are a few people who have had enough similar experiences, and when you meet someone who's like, "Yep,
Yeah,
I have felt that," it's different. Feeling it is different from knowing it,
right.
and I think that's something really rare and very fun. So,
I agree with you. It's not, there are very few people that I can have these types of conversations with. And I can mention when the light came on for me was actually after the 20 years abroad, when I found a small group, which is no longer in existence
oh,
for reasons we won't share. But it's the Institute for Intercultural Communication,
oh,
which doesn't exist anymore. And this room was full of academics, which had literally written the books on this field of study.
okay,
And I
yeah.
was like, why didn't anyone tell me there were books? Why didn't anyone
I
tell
would
me?
have read that book.
Exactly. I would have read all the books because I was so confused for so much of the time. But then what I also found out was that in that group, in that amazing room of super intelligent, learned people, there weren't any business people.
Mm,
So
no
you
bridge.
don't have the whole picture.
No bridge.
Right.
Yeah,
Because all of these things that we want to predict and plan for, and
yeah.
sorry.
And it
Hey,
takes so many parties too. And I think that's probably a great notion to sum up our conversation. It takes many parties,
yes.
many minds,
Perspectives.
many meetings,
Yes.
and a whole lot of curiosity and respect.
Respect.
Yeah. So wonderful. Thank you for all of this time and conversation. I've loved every second.
I very much appreciate the invitation.
Thank you.
Resourceful Women is a product of the Prospector News. Opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speaker and speaker alone. Resourceful Women is for educational and entertainment purposes, and nothing in the podcast should be taken as investment advice. Always consult with a licensed personal financial advisor before making any investment purchases.